Find out what's new in VMware Cloud Director Object Storage Extension 2.1. Let's start with new features for OC provider administrators. Global tenant bucket synchronization. Ensure all multi-site tenant buckets are synced up on demand or schedule a global bucket sync. Up next, global storage policy for cloudin. With a simple set of rules, cloud provider administrators can enable tenants to create and manage their own buckets and objects. Although VMware Cloud Director Object Storage Extension offers a default storage policy, the value add with 2.1 release is that it allows tenants who use cloudin platform to create custom storage policy from within OC interface. This feature was highly demanded by cloud providers and tenants who are using cloudin platform for storage. Moving on to VApp export feature. Starting with OC 2.1, administrators on the provider and tenant side can get a detailed snapshot of the VApp import and export history. Up next, Kubernetes backup and restore. One of the highlights of OC 2.1 is the Kubernetes cluster backup and restore available to tenants. The backup of the selected Kubernetes cluster data can be triggered immediately or scheduled for a particular time. The backed up data goes to a selected S3 bucket and can be restored later to the source Kubernetes cluster in case of data loss. The Kubernetes backup and restore feature leverages Velero to protect Kubernetes cluster, hence there are no complex compatibility issues. Velero uses the S3 protocol to store the cluster backups, and it can help protect data stored in persistent volumes and make sure entire Kubernetes cluster more resilient. If you want to schedule cluster backup, you can do so now. Refresh the page and take a look at the cluster backup timeline. You can navigate to the bucket console to check the backup schedule for your buckets. Furthermore, you can edit protection policy, delete snapshots, and stop protection. Here, you can see the contents of the restored clusters. In this snippet, you will learn how to back up and restore Kubernetes cluster. The yellow signage showcases the status of restore process. The restore process is now complete. You can now go onto your buckets to view the restore folder and the contents within it. Furthermore, in OC 2.1, new subordinate roles can be applied to tenants. These roles define the scope of actions that tenant users can perform on catalogs, VApps, and Kubernetes clusters. Storage policy for tenants is also available in OC 2.1. Each tenant administrator can choose which storage policy to use for the tenant organization. Another available enhancement is S3 Endpoint URL, which can help tenant access their S3 buckets from an S3 client. Last but not the least, tenant users can also restore objects from their S3 bucket archive tiers to frequently access tiers in order to check their contents. Thank you for watching this brief demo of OC 2.1. If you have any questions, please connect with us via Slack, and don't forget to read our latest blog. The links are available on the description box.